Thank you, gentlemen, and a very good afternoon. Very warm welcome back to all of you who missed us on the rest day yesterday. Giro d'Italia on to stage 10, Civitanova Marche to Forlì. 195 kilometres today, and a sprint most probably. Heading up to the feeding station at Fano. Feeding station at Fano on another beautifully sunny day. Weather that may not last. We're told that on Thursday the weather may start to change and we might have a bit of a repeat to what we've seen in the last few years, which is pretty nasty Giro weather. Fabio Aru's had a puncture, we're told. Everything all okay a little further back, and this is where it was. Aru with a front wheel puncture, repaired, and of course with exactly the situation of the race at the minute. 5 breakaway riders, none of them dangerous overall, all of them Italian, and with a sprint stage a probability, Aru allowed back into the group, of course. Well, those breakers are Oscar Gatto of Androni. The man you're looking at is Alessandro Malaguti, and this is Alberto Contador, of course, the pink jersey. 4 minutes and 30 behind. Tinkoff Saxo having a bit of a recovery day yesterday, just as everybody did after a very, very hard first week. Alberto Contador trying his time trial bike out. There's Andre Greipel. We're going to talk about him and much more after the commercial break we're about to go to. 108 kilometres remain. Marangoni, Busato, Malaguti, Gatto and Bohem all in the break today. Italian teams represented, and it's a nice visit up along the east coast of Italy, the Adriatic coast. Holiday season in full swing. And beautiful temperatures today. That's Fano. We expect a sprint in Forlì today. 2006 the last time we were here. Robbie McEwen was the winner then. And of course today Alberto Contador in pink. 3 seconds of a lead over Fabio Aru. Richie Porte 22 further behind. We'll go through all of the first week talking points when we come back after this. And of course building up to today's sprint finish. See you in a moment. So we start the second week with 5 Italian riders out in the breakaway. 4 teams from professional continental level, the second division of world professional cycling, are represented. Androni Sidemek have Oscar Gatto there. The man on your screen is from Southeast. That was Matteo Busato. As we have a chat with Alberto Contador and the peloton, the race leader in pink, and still recovering, of course, from that dislocated shoulder he suffered in week 1. So Gatto and Busato are there. Alessandro Malaguti also in the break for Nipovini Fantini. Contador enjoying a good moment, and it's almost like a second rest day for the GC contenders for the minute. Ala Marangoni and Nicola Bohem also in the breakaway. One man back with us here on Eurosport Cycling is Sean Kelly. Sean, I understand you've had a bit of an operation. You better, you're back with us. How are things?
Everything is fine. 2 weeks to go, so it's manageable. A 2-week race is okay, but a 3-week one gets a long one. So
you won't be dropping back to the car all the time.
No, very happy to be back, and what a great week of racing it has been for the first week. Magnificent racing, and yeah, this Giro, you know, it never disappoints.
Never does disappoint, and we've got a second week coming up now with a couple of sprint stages, a couple of stages where riders have to be careful. Then the big dish at the weekend, really, the piatto forte, as they'd say in this part, mountain stage and a time trial. But of course the GC men, as we've seen from the first week, Sean, have got to be careful on every stage. Well,
that's what a 3-week tour is about, a big tour. You have to be careful every day. You never know the stages which, you know, are the ones which are, you know, very unlikely to throw up something. That's where you can get caught out on the flatter stages. You just never know. So if you're going for a general classification, you have to always, you know, be there with your team, keep close to the front, and be ready for all occasions. And that's what the big tour riders have to be. So physically it's demanding, but mentally also it's very much demanding. But yes, we will see this week. You know, I think a bit of an easy week last week. I think now they will be thinking about the time trial later in the week, but that doesn't say we could see, you know, very aggressive racing for the next couple of days.
Well, the weather's been good, and the weather started excellent when Orica Greenedge were performing fantastically well at the start of last week. They set it as their target again to have a great first week, Orica Greenedge. They took the jersey with the team time trial. They kept the jersey with different riders in the end. One of those riders who won a stage in pink was Michael Matthews, and we caught up with him at the start today.
We are at the start with Michael Matthews. Michael, what kind of stage you expect today?
Hoping for quite a relaxed stage today. After the rest day yesterday, we had a really nice day, and it's been a really hard 9 days of racing so far. So yeah, hopefully the peloton's quite relaxed today, and we can have another chilled day and maybe a little sprint in the final. But for me today, I won't be sprinting. I'll just be trying to save my legs for tomorrow and for the next day. They're better stages that suit me for the moment.
Okay, so for you today, it's sun cream and relax in the pack.
Yeah, definitely a lot of sun cream because it's quite a hot day today. So yeah, it will be not right at the back, but somewhere comfortable in the peloton.
Okay, thank you very much, and good luck for tomorrow.
That's the first interesting declaration of the week, Sean Kelly. Michael Matthews saying that on a sprinter stage today he isn't going to sprint. Is that indicative of how flat and how relatively, in inverted commas, easy this stage is on paper? You've got the big guys like Greipel and Viviani going for it. Well,
yeah, you've got the bigger sprinters, of course, and we all know Matthews, he doesn't, maybe have that outright speed against the bigger ones, but that doesn't say in the end, if it's going to, develop into a big bunch sprint. And that's the question now. We have this breakaway out with 101 kilometres to go, 4:42 at the moment, and we can see here a relaxed day. Where is it? I don't see the relaxed day, and I think the riders hoping for an easy day after the rest day. It's not happening here, because we must look at the first hour, 44.3. After 2 hours of racing, 44.76. It's certainly not a relaxed day, so the break is really having to ride out front, and the peloton is not allowed to take a big advantage, because it's not anything out of control at the moment with 4:42. So we'll have to wait and see. But Michael Matthews said, well, the sprint is not really his type of sprint, but again, depending how he's feeling, what way the race develops in the end, and if there's a stage victory hanging out there as a sprinter, it's just hard to stay away from it when you get involved. And you always get pulled into the end when you have a bit of a sprint, like Matthews certainly has got.
If you're a competitive bike rider, you've got that competitive instinct, and you get that little carrot of victory dangled in front of you. It's hard to ignore, isn't it?
Very much, very hard to ignore. Impossible, really, to ignore. Unless you're suffering a little bit and you're feeling tired, and then you might say, well, I'm not going to really get involved because this is not my type of sprint, which is the case maybe for Matthews. But again, if you're feeling good and the team is about you there in the end, well, very, very hard to stay away if you feel that the good legs and the team is about you trying to keep you up there in the front.
First Swiss Tony sighting of week 2. Gianni Savio, there he is. White hair in the wind as he likes in the breakaway. The man in his breakaway today is Oscar Gatto. Gatto is probably the perfect Androni Giocattoli rider, isn't he? He's a guy who likes going stage hunting, and if we're realistic, that's the best that Androni can hope for.
Well, we've seen him over the past number of years. Always in the breakaways. Haven't been successful really in the latter years winning stages, but certainly the kilometres out in front. I was looking at some stats there. It's his team who have the number of kilometres out in the front of the race, I think last year or over the last number of years, far ahead of anybody else.
They actually had to get their invite last year. There's always an automatic spot for the winners of the Italian Cup, the Italian calendar of races, the Coppa Italia, every year, but this year they didn't win it. That went to Bardiani, so they got the automatic invite, and they had to be invited by the race organisers, RCS. We're heading to Pesaro, seaside resort. As you can see, it's famous for other sports, not too famous for soccer in this part of the world, but certainly volleyball and basketball have always been big in Pesaro. They've had very good teams that have competed in European competition. And heading towards Emilia-Romagna, which is huge in the history of cycling. We're not far away from Marco Pantani country. Emilia-Romagna, also the red socialist belt of Italy, known for its fine cuisine, music, student cities as well. And Pesaro, bathed in sunshine today. Well, the only climb of this particular Giro d'Italia stage today is a fourth category Monte di Bartolo climb, and it comes just after this, and you get the feeling, Sean, looking at the elevation, it's nothing big. It only goes up to 169 metres above sea level. It's a pretty flat part of Italy, this, and it's just to keep the sponsors of the King of the Mountains jersey happy, isn't it?
Yes, just to give a premium during the day, during the stage, and it's not going to have any major consequences at all. I think the breakaway, they will just roll through, and who is riding on the front at that time, they will just take the maximum GPM points, so it won't be of it won't be of any importance today. The breakaway, they're going to continue on, try and hold together, because this 5-man group is not a huge group, considering it's a long day. So they're going to try and keep the group together and keep the advantage as much as possible. With 4:44 at the moment, they're going to have to really turn it on in the final 30-40 kilometres to be hold on out there.
And are hiding to nothing at the minute. And the pace is up in the peloton behind, as Sean was saying. There he is, strong out today. For the break, well, it went in the first 5 kilometres. If ever a break was going to go, it was on this profile very, very early on. For once, no aggressive racing at the start. Everybody happy about the composition. 5 Italian riders as we approach Pesaro. 4 from professional continental level. The only pro-continental level team not involved is CCC Sprandi Polkowice. And 1 World Tour team there with Alan Marangoni riding for Cannondale Garmin. Marangoni rode in Romondi before here. He's actually from Emilia-Romagna, as is Alessandro Malaguti. So 2 riders in their home region at the end of the stage today out in the break. And I tell you what, if somebody has a bit of motivation to hang on, it would be Alessandro Malaguti, because he's actually from Forlì, where we finished today. In the meantime, conversation about that left shoulder between Tom Boner and Alberto Contador. It's interesting, Sean, because you and I were in Paris-Nice when Tom Boner injured his shoulder in rather more serious circumstances than Alberto Contador, pulling ligaments, having to be operated, and he was 2 months off the bike. And just comparing notes there, the guys.
Yes, we can see Contador is talking about the shoulder injury he's had in this first week of racing, and a lot of talk about it as well. People are saying, oh, it's nothing as nothing is like they're talking it up to be, and of course they're going to do that, because we remember last year Contador crashing out of the Tour of France. Then was he going to start the Vuelta? Yes, no, I don't think I'd be ready, and he came back to the Vuelta, and what form he was in. He put in such a great performance there, and people were saying he wasn't off the bike as long, and of course they're going to start questioning here, did he really have as much injury as he's talking it up to be? Was he suffering as much? Well, if he'd had that injury, I think now he's out of the danger zone, because the first 48 hours will be the most difficult time, where you would have a lot of pain. Of course now they can tape it up very well, so that will support a lot in the first 24-40 hours after it. And I think Contador now is in the driving seat for me in this Giro. He has all to lose.
3 seconds ahead of Aro. We'll talk about the GC when we come back after this. Well, with the breakaway, Alan Marangoni heading to his home region of Emilia-Romagna today. Rides for Cannondale Garmin, who had 2 riders in the break on stage 9. Nothing came of it, though, on that final stage before the rest day, with Slagter attacking from well over 65 k's out. No surprise to see Alan Marangoni's favourite sport is cycling. And no surprise that his hero is Marco Pantani, seen as that he hails from the same region as him. Now, how does the Giro add up after week 1? Well, 188 riders remain, 10 retired during the first 9 stages. 12 days are left, one of which is a time trial, and we've got all of the most difficult mountain stages still to go as well. Italian riders did really well in that first week. They won 4 of the first 9 stages. As far as the GC is concerned, 3 is the number of seconds that 2008 winner Alberto Contador leads this 2015 Giro by. Italy's Fabio Aru is in 2nd place with his Astana team, the strongest of the opening days. Richie Porte, looking to become the 2nd Australian to win a Grand Tour, sits in 3rd place at 22 seconds off the lead, riding for Sky. This is Matteo Busato, who's in the breakaway, a win in each of his last 3 seasons. Rides for Southeast, but this is his first season riding at this particular level. His first ever Giro d'Italia. His favourite cyclist was Bernardino the Badger himself. Likes to listen to a bit of Italian rap. So Sean, 2nd week, where are we in terms of this overall pink jersey fight? Of course, Contador going so well. He missed the press conference for the Risen press on the last 3 successive days, but local journalists getting annoyed and saying he wasn't turning up, wondering whether he'd be fined or not. The organisers weren't brave enough to do that, but he put his lunch off yesterday on the rest day at Alberto Contador until 3 p.m. He went up to the cameras, had a chat to the written press as well, and said he never thought about going home even once. You'd see them in the prime position, you think, to take the pink jersey in Milan here?
Well, first of all, if you send him down Post Ross, if he didn't go to press launch, he'd be definitely thrown out.
We've seen that already in the Ross this week, riders
yes,
thrown out.
That's true. No, I think Contador is making the calculation. The press conference after the stage, of course, first of all, you have podium, you have doping control, you have all of that, so it's very time consuming. So he's trying to waste least amount of time possible, and that's what he'll be looking at it as. It's going to the press and talking to the press every day and getting the same questions day after day. So I'm not surprised he's after missing 2 or 3 days and get back to hotel recovery. But I think Contador is in the real good position at the moment. Like, he's got through the first week, which has been a really difficult week. What magnificent racing it was, so aggressive racing, and he had that crash. He got through the days afterwards very, very well, and I think when you look at this week coming up now, just hold on to that position, then the time trial, that is going to be of vital importance. And when you look at Contador of past, his time trial ability, he's a real good time trialist. Against an Aru, I think Fabian Aru will have to, just limit his losses, and that will be the question. How much will he lose to Contador? Richie Porte, a better time trialist. I think he's, more equal to Contador. But again, we all know Richie Porte in a big 3-week tour. He gets that one day where he loses a lot of time. Is he going to have that this year? So for me, Contador is in the real good position at the moment. But again, a big 3-week tour, you never know. The most solid riders, experienced riders, they still can have an off day, and there's a lot of difficult days to come in this final week of Giro.
We're about to see the only climb of the day in terms of the King of the Mountains classification, in any terms as well, to be honest, because the rest of the stage is pan flat. There's no uncategorised climbs today like there were in the last few stages. 5 breakaway riders on your screen. Right at the front in the black and green, it's Alan Marangoni, who rides for Cannondale-Garmin, the American team. Just behind him in the white and grey, you can see the southeast rider Matteo Busato. It's the Nippo Vini Fantini rider Alessandro Malaguti from the region, and going out just to try and see if he can snatch some mountains points. On the left-hand side, you've got Oscar Gatto having a look across. It seems that they're going to contest these. Everybody looking around. 4th category climb, so only 3 2 and 1 points available. In the blue jersey at the minute, it's Simon Geschke, the German for Team Giant Alpecin, the climber's jersey. Geschke, the first German to lead the mountains classification ever since Sebastian Lang was in charge of it in 2011. Nothing too taxing here at all. No big gradients. Just a change in rhythm, really, Sean, after what we've seen on the flat today.
Yes, I think they're just working their way up at a good pace. They're certainly not attacking each other, and it's not the thing to do at the moment. With just 4:10 an advantage, the 5 riders, they're going to get close to the GPM point, and maybe there will be a little bit of a sprint between the top 2 or 3 riders, and then get back in formation again and continue on working and try and hold this lead as far as possible. But we can see back in the bunch, it seems to be upping in pace a bit, and I Am Cycling are the ones who are pushing on. And it's often the case where there's some team not happy with the breakaway, they haven't a man represented out front.
It's Malaguti who comes across first. Marangoni second, the 2 local boys 1-2, so it looks as though it may well have been preordained with a little conversation on the way up there. Third was the man from southeast, Busato. Giant Alpecin helping out in the front with Yam Cycling doing a lot of work. Trek Factory Racing having Beppu there, their reliable domestique from Japan, and Lotto Sudal. 4 teams really with the 4 best sprinters bar Elia Viviani of Sky, who are obviously not going to do any work today. Viviani will be helped, I'm sure, towards the end as we re-see those mountain points given out again. Nippo Vini Fantini taking them with Malaguti. Marangoni in second and Busato in third as well. Back to the racing then. Only interruption for the climb at 92.5 kilometres to go. 4 minutes and 9. Not a huge advantage on this terrain, and certainly with the power and the armour behind from the sprint teams. Yam Cycling will be looking to do something for Matteo Pelucchi today. Pelucchi, who hasn't really challenged as much as he perhaps wanted to. A lot of sprinters here. We're talking the likes of Apollonio, Ruffoni, Modolo, Pelucchi, Bona as well. We've seen chatting to Alberto Contador. Andre Greipel, who could go back into the red jersey today, the points jersey. Lobato, Mezgets, Porsev, Petaki and Belletti, who's at home as well. Matthew Matthews has already said he's not going to sprint, with Hofland, Viviani and îdʒiːro. Let's go and hear from one of those sprinters. Here is Sacha Modolo. With Sacha Modolo, the start today. It's no rest for the sprinters today. No, today we're going to try and make sure we can pull off victory. It's a bit of a complicated finish, but we're going to try it. Yeah, we think today is a day for Modolo. Of course, Lotto are probably going to be there, and they're going to be very, very strong. You're going to have to be quite lucky to beat those guys, though, but we're going to try, and we'll see how it goes. So confident, Sacha Modolo. We haven't had too many sprints so far, Sean. We saw one in Genoa that's a little crazy with the crashes that went before. We saw Elia Viviani getting his first ever Giro d'Italia win victory. But that fantastic lead-out that was done before the crash at Castiglione della Pescaia the other day by Greg Henderson and Lotto Soudal. Would you see on a purely flat course like this Andre Greipel as the clear favourite?
Well, when you look at the running today, I don't think it will be the perfect finish for Greipel. He would, prefer a long straight, 1 kilometre straight to the finish. The corners and the little bit of pavé we have as well. We must not forget that we heard Bernie Eisel talking about it. So that's going to be a concern for everybody because at the rate they will be going in that final, it's going to be a little bit of a tricky run in. Modolo, of course, we know Modolo, no fear. He's just one of these kamikaze guys, so this sort of finish today would suit him perfectly. He hasn't won a stage where Greipel has won already, so he's not going to be as hungry as some of the guys haven't won a stage, and the teams. And we can see there I Am Cycling as well, Palucci, who will be going for Trek Factory racing with Nizzolo. There's a lot of teams here who haven't got anything out of the race, and they're the ones who are starting to appear on the front at the moment, and starting to keep the pace real high on the front end of peloton.
No such worries for Lampre Merida, who took 2 stage wins in the opening week. It was a really good opening week for the Italians, wasn't it? They took 4 stage wins, a couple of podiums as well. We've had Italians in the white jersey for 7 out of 8 days. We've had them in the sprint jersey as well with Viviani. The locals will be really happy with what's happened so far.
Well, I think the Italian press are very happy. It's been a great first week for them. Stage victories and a lot of other, podiums. And of course, Aru, very much up there in the 4 for the fight to win this Giro outright at the moment. So they're all very happy. I think there's the Sky one is the thing that a lot of people talking about. Sky are not doing the work, and why are they not riding? We have the interview with Richie Porte, and of course, myself included, sometimes we're always talking about Sky. Why are they riding the front? They're always controlling the front. Now they're not riding the front, and they're still getting a lot of stick and a lot of press coverage because of that. I think, as Richie Porte said, they don't have to ride in the front at the moment. They haven't got the yellow jersey, so they just follow and protect Richie Porte.
Just under 90 k's to go. Fast average so far today. 4 minutes for the break. Alberto Contador leads Fabio Aru by 3 seconds at the start of stage 10 on the Giro d'Italia. Richie Porte 22 down in 3rd place. Mikel Landa in 4th at 46 seconds. Dario Cataldo 5th at 1 minute and 16 with Kreuziger, Visconti, Uran having lost 2 minutes. Caruso is 9th. Astana with 3 riders in the top 5 there, Sean, looking really, really good. And Fabio Aru at the top of the overall standings. Do you think they've done too much in week 1?
No, I think they've really, had an excellent week. Winning stages, and so many riders up there on the end. And we must not forget, they have been riding a lot with the team, but still riders very much present in the final climb with Aru. And the one thing I took from the first week was that they were using the other riders in the general classification, and they were trying everything, every way to try and put Contador under difficulty. Aru, went in the attack, but was never really seen to put Alberto Contador in difficulty. But then they tried with the other riders who were up there in the general classification. So they knew there was an opportunity there after the crash. They were really pushing Contador, but did not see any cracks. I certainly did not see any cracks, and I think now they're going to be saying, how are we going to get one over Contador, how are we going to break him, and that is the question we're all asking, and I don't see an answer to it at the moment.
Interesting to see how it goes. Vincenzo Nibali actually said in the Italian press today, whilst he was closed off in what he called the convent at the top of Mount Teide, where nothing else happened. He's training up there, as are the Team Sky guys at the minute. It's funny that the big rivals for the Tour de France are all staying at the same hotel at the top of Tenerife on the Canary Islands at the minute. And Nibali on the phone to the Italian journalist yesterday, as we see a bit of a mechanical for one of the guys from Giant Alpecin. It looks as though it's Chad Haggart. But Nibali saying that Fabio Aru should attack Alberto Contador before the time trial to try and get into pink and be the last man out on the road.
Well, I think it's difficult to see where you can attack. If you look at the first week of racing, you know, they have been really aggressive racing on the small climbs to the finish. They have attacked each other all the time. You know, Aru has attacked Contador's forward, of course. He's, you know, race leader, so that's all they've got to do. And of course, you know, the position he's in at the moment. If you're having an injury and you're recovering from that, thinking the time trial out in the end. Richie Porte, he's following for the moment. So, you know, it's easy to say or in attack, but where can you do it?
Kevin,
with Kevin Reza, whose birthday it was yesterday. You've been well placed in the sprints, but you haven't been going for it so far. What do you need to do a top three there? Well, I've been a bit unlucky, but in a sprint you never know what can happen. Of course, a lot of teams know what to do with their trains and to do for a long time. At RCS Sport, we're building our own train, and I have to play it for myself. Today's quite a strange stage, a really flat stage, but there's a couple of corners, cobblestone, it's a bit technical. Yeah, it's a transition stage after a day off. It's quite particular today and quite unique. You've got to play with a win, really. And you have to look out for quite a lot of different variables and things. The finish will be interesting, and of course, if I can do something at the end, I'll try. Kevin Reza, who celebrated his birthday yesterday for RCS Sport, looking to try and do something in the sprint, but again, it's going to be so complicated with all those big teams there. Sean, well, with that Mark Cavendish and Marcel Kittel here, it's been a difficult time for the sprinters so far, and when you see how the first week of the Giro has been raced, you can sort of understand why the likes of Cavendish and Kittel have said, Giro's not for me again this year, I'll concentrate on the Tour de France.
Yes, certainly, and I don't think they'll be regretting anything when you see the first week, the way the racing was you know, so fast and, you know, really aggressive racing all the time. And it's continuing on today again. You know, we're looking there when we came on air, this breakaway, it looked like maybe it could grow out to a nice advantage, but unfortunately, you know, we're seeing more and more teams putting riders in the front and starting to up the pace in the front of the peloton. And, you know, the parkour as well, that's where the teams, the riders look at. And of course, this first week wasn't a great week for the sprinters, not a lot of opportunity.
Well, we're seeing just how technical that final kilometre is, quite narrow roads. You can see the bits of pavé, and pavé very much in inverted commas. Let's be clear, this is not Paris-Roubaix, this is not the Tour of Flanders, but in a fast bunch sprint finish, it's something else to think about. And of course, narrow road, Sean, few turns. It's not going to be easy for the trains to organise themselves.
No, and let's hope they move the vans there on the road before the riders arrive. And the cyclo-tourists. No, it's not going to be an easy run. As we can see here, when you're on these small pavés and in the corner as well, there's a corner to be negotiated on the pavés. And, you know, when you're going at that 55, 60 kilometers per hour, you know, grip is not going to be as good as it would be on an asphalt road. So it is going to be a danger one, and you know, we can see all this running. It's one of these, you know, tricky finishes, a dangerous finish again, and there's no guarantee if you have a straight run-in of a kilometre. There's no guarantee it's not going to be dangerous, because of the riders and the, you know, the aggression in the bunch, in the teams of the sprinters and the sprinters left. That's what, you know, makes it in the end, and depending on what way they race. And I think it's going to be a very fast and aggressive final, because there's going to be a lot of teams with a lot of riders represented up there, and it's going to be just a big dogfight for the final kilometre and a half to be in the front there with your team with 4 or 5 riders.
Well, that's the flip side, isn't it, of not having too many opportunities for sprinters in a Grand Tour. It's certainly not like the Tour de France in in where you usually see most of the days in the opening week as opportunities for the sprinters, with the odd little difference, of course, stage hunters, maybe a prologue, maybe a time trial, team time trial, of course. Here, we've had a bit of everything. We've had quite a lot of mounting, we've had a heck of a lot of hills, some short stages, aggressive racing, and the guys who have sent sprint teams here know that there aren't many opportunities, and that's in their mind all the time. It's not as if, oh, well, tomorrow's going to be another opportunity. The pressure is on these days very much for the sprint teams.
Yeah, big time. From the teams, from the sponsors, the pressure is on, and of course, more on the teams who haven't got a stage victory, who maybe come here just with a sprinter alone in the team. Maybe they have somebody for the general classification, but not a podium contender, so they are really under pressure. And of course, the sprinters themselves, Modulo, for example, how far is he going to go in this Giro? When we get into the bigger mountains, is he going to be able to get through some of these mountain stages? So time is always, the worry for him. And if you can get a stage win at this point in the race, well then, it makes a good tour for the rider himself and for the team as well, especially for the ones haven't won. Lamprey, of course, they have had stage victories already, but some of the teams who have got nothing out of this race, and the sprinter is their is their trump card, well then they're really getting worried, and the pressure is really on a stage like today.
Canada Garmin again in the break. Busy days for their sport directors in this Giro d'Italia. Of course, they've won a stage from the break already with Davide Formolo. Of course, you were sitting on the sofa at home watching last week, Sean. We didn't get your opinion on Davide Formolo, but he looks to be a great young talent at 22 years of age, and it's a good thing that there's no pressure on him really here to do a general classification. We saw him with the freedom, and he put in a fantastic ride the other day.
Yes, well, we've been hearing about the Formolo from a number of riders, more so, I suppose, even Basso. He talked him up a lot, and he certainly, lived up to that talk about him, and I think he put in a great performance. And I think for the future, he looks like a rider, who could be a big 3-week tour contender in the next couple of years. But looking at Canada Garmin, when they were in the breakaway 2 days ago, I was surprised they went in the attack so far out, and I think they paid the price. So tactically, I think they should have held back for much longer, because when you're in a breakaway of X number of riders, and that was what, 7 or 8 riders the other day, and to go in the attack on your own, it's a big ask, and unfortunately it didn't work out for them in the end. And I think they were just a bit too anxious too early.
It's been so unpredictable so far, and of course the breakaway, although we've had a few wins from the breakaway, it hasn't been helped with the pace that's been coming on from behind from Astana and Tinkoff Saxo, of course, who've been looking after the white and pink jerseys respectively. This is the breakaway, and if you're joining us a little late, just a reminder of who is there. Oscar Gatto for Androni, being chased down by Lotto Soudal, Jan Alpecin, Trek Factory Racing and Yam Cycling. Gatto is joined by Nicola Bohem, another Italian from Bardiani, Alessandro Malaguti from the region racing for Nippo Vini Fantini. Matteo Busato is Southeast representative, and Alan Marangoni heading into his home region as well from Team Cannondale Garmin. Really quick first hour of 44.3 kilometers per hour. Yes, it's on the flat today, but a lot of the guys could have been forgiven for thinking they were going to have an extra rest day. In terms of the rest day, some interesting stories coming out, as there always are. Talked about Fabio Aru. He was busy instructing his lawyer to file a defamation suit against Greg Henderson, the man who's expected to lead out Andre Greipel today. Tweets that were alleged to have damaged his image, suggesting that he may have been doing something untoward. Of course, we'll await news from that in the coming weeks and months. Inside the final 80 kilometres of what is stage 10 on the Giro d'Italia. 3 minutes and 36 for the breakaway riders out there in front. Breakaway riders all from Italy today, 4 of them from second division teams, and of course Alan Marangoni, the only man from World Tour. We'll be talking about the sprint that is probably going to happen today, but before all that happens, it's interesting to have a look at the general classification battle. Alberto Contador, with all the drama and the injury we've had so far and the crashes, it's been a really good battle. One man is out of it for the minute. Rigoberto Urán, the big loser of the week that saw the 4 tops quickly become the 3 tenors. Already a race when he had a team that looked more suited to riding on the flat than in the mountainous terrain of much of Italy. Colombian losing time, unable to match the early accelerations on the climbs. He lost another 46 seconds on Sunday, Sean. Can we ever see Rigoberto Urán winning a Grand Tour?
Difficult to see. You know, he seemed to be getting into difficulty when the real battle is on in the final kilometres between the big guys for the overall classification. He just seems to be a little bit off that pace. At the moment, you know, he is down at 2:10 in the general classification. Depending on after the time trial, when we get into the more serious mountain stages, if he's still in that position, well, then he could, you know, steal 30-40 seconds here and there, because if there's a big battle between the top guys, Contador, Aru and Richie Porte, well then, you know, he will be allowed maybe to go in the attack in the final, but he has to improve the way he's performing. That is the difficult one, the first week, because sometimes guys are like that, the first week, the first 10 days of racing, and then they get settled into it and they can get better. And I think, you know, we cannot count him out of the general classification or a place for the podium, where he's finished a number of times already in this Giro.
Interesting that Ethics Quickstep haven't really backed him up as you thought they might have done. Okay, it's difficult. They're a team that's dedicated for the most part to the classics and the sprints, of course, with Tom Boner and Mark Cavendish, Niki Terpstra, as we've seen the last couple of years. They don't have many climbers, but there are a couple of climbers that they didn't bring that they perhaps could have brought. Do you think that perhaps Rigoberto Urán could use the excuse that his team have never backed him fully in a general classification challenge?
No, I don't think he can use that excuse. It's just that he hasn't been, you know, at his best, or, you know, not at the level to be able to match the other guys in this first week of racing. But that is, you know, it doesn't say that he's at, you know, 2 minutes 10. It's nothing at the moment. If he can really perform well in the final week of racing, get the time trial out of the way, and if he can still, you know, hold up there in that position. And we must remember, you know, Urán is a very good time trialer, so he could actually take time out of a lot of the riders that are ahead of him there in the general classification. So with the team situation, it doesn't help, because, you know, he doesn't have riders with him in the final, but it's been the case in the last number of years as well, where he has done a podium finish in the Giro without any great support from the team.
We heard a couple of comments from Vincenzo Nibali prior to the break. Nibali also commenting in the Italian press today that he was actually thinking of coming to the Giro to try and do what Alberto Contador's doing, the Giro and Tour double. He said that he looked at the first week, that chaotic, fantastically dramatic first week that we've had, entertain all these guys, the tifosi that we all know, the fans in Italy who love their drama, and almost put pressure on the organisers to make these courses and these parkour that are extremely difficult and fantastically entertaining. Nibali said that if it had been a more calm first week of a parkour, that he would have thought again about coming, and he would have been more inclined to try and go for the double. He says it's the right decision not to do it, and perhaps painting Alberto Contador in a bit of a crazy light. Do you think it's possible, this double?
I think it's possible, although when you look at the first week of racing, it's been, you know, very, very energy-sapping, very demanding. And you know, going on in this Giro, if it continues on the final week, of course, the mountain stages are always going to be very, very demanding. You know, to do a big 3-week tour and then, you know, go away, get enough rest time is the problem, and be still back there in good form for the Tour of France is going to be a big ask. If anybody can do it, I think it's Alberto Contador can do it. But, you know, going back to Nibali, I think, you know, he's gone away, he's preparing for his Tour of France quietly. I'm not surprised maybe he's talking now, while I had little, you know, plans of maybe doing the Giro, but that's easy to say now that the race is on and it's, you know, not possible. But I think Nibali, he looks at the Tour of France route this year, and when you look at starting up in Holland, you know, if you get a bad first 5 or 6 days of the race, wet, windy conditions, of course we have day 5 again, cobblestones, where he, you know, really, you know, took the race by the scruff of the neck, and that's where he laid down his winning mark on the Tour. So he's looked at all of that, and I think, you know, Nibali for the Tour of France, the weather will be a big importance, and if it's anything like last year, well then, you know, he could be very much up there to try and. He will be up there, but to win the Tour of France, he's a great chance if the weather is not favourable, because when you look at the other big favourites, you know, they are going to have difficulty on those stages.
The break today, enjoying the sunshine. I think most of them know that there's no realistic possibility of them getting to the end and avoiding the sprint. 75 kilometres to go. Guys in the break, Oscar Gatto out in the front. The man we're looking at the minute is Matteo Bozzato. Busato's 27 now, and it's his first big experience at this level of cycling. Southeast, a rebranded team, of course, the former Vini Fantini team, before they moved off to partner with Nippo to form a new team. Luca Scinto no longer in charge at Southeast. There is Alessandro Malaguti for the current Nippo Vini Fantini team. Nicola Bohem also in the break with Alan Marangoni as well there too. Just inside 75 kilometers today. And once we descend this little hill, it's basically all flat and running up the east coast again. You can see those Adriatic breakwaters, all the tourist towns. We're not going to go far from Rimini, which is, well, if you're from the UK, it's a bit like the Italian Blackpool. Big tourist resort. There's Jonathan Monsalve, Venezuelan rider. Best result at the Giro, 66th. It's his second Giro d'Italia. And a few conversations going on back in the peloton today. What did you do on the rest day? How did you get on? Did you enjoy it? Talk about Fabio Aru's day instructing his lawyers. Well, Alberto Contador went out on both his road bike and his TT bike, and he said that he's going to have to change his time trial position for the weekend, which could be really interesting. He said it only took him 2 minutes to realise with his shoulder problems that he's going to have to focus and prioritise comfort over aerodynamics in the time trial at the weekend on Saturday. Interesting to see what effect that's going to have on him.
Well, I think his crash is milking it big time now if he's going to talk about the time trial already. You know, we're still a long ways away from the time trial, and you know, the 24-40 hours after the crash, your shoulder can give you a lot of problems, but then it should start getting better. And I don't see why he should have changed the time trial, changed his position on his time trial bike or talking about changing at this moment, because he should be recovered fully. And I find it hard to believe why you would change in the middle of a big tour at this time. Okay, if you had the injury 2 or 3 days before and you had problems getting down in that time trial position on your time trial bike, you might have to make some adjustments. But at this moment, talking about that, I think it's a lot of a PR game.
Do you think that the man that Ivan Bassa's looking after is just milking it a bit, playing on that injury a bit too much?
Yes, I think he's got his pound out of it, I think, and he's really pushing it on now. If he's talking about the time trial already, we must remember it's a weekend, the time trial, so it shouldn't be any problem with his shoulder at that point. I think he should be fully recovered. If it's going to if it's going to recover at all, it will be in the next number of days. I don't think he should have any ill effects from it.
Well, he said he was already feeling a lot better on stage 9, and we saw that. He was out climbing on the pedals. He looked very, very comfortable. He was smiling at the end as well, and seemed to be, it was a bee sting rather than anything else that was causing him problems towards the end of the stage when he had ice on the side of his cheek the other day.
And we've already seen today he's having a chat with a number of riders there. He's smiling, and it doesn't look like he's have any pain and any suffering at the moment.
In the meantime, time to go back to the start.
Last today, it's not a rest day for the team who has a sprinter such Andre Greipel.
No, it's a day where we have to win, so that's only good.
But you already have won. You can be quiet in the pack.
Yeah, but more will have more, and we are here to win as much as possible. So now it's a flat stage today, so we have to go 100% for Andre Greipel, of course.
And did you have a look on the finish? I hear that there's some cobblestone. That has changed something.
Yeah, it's going to be a fight for the last 2 corners. We come from this straight road the last many kilometers, and then the last 1,200 meters you have the right corner. So it's going to be the first sprint to go first into that corner, and that's me and Adam's job, Adam Hansen. So we try to place him and Craig good before the last 2 corners.
Okay, good luck. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, everybody has a plan for the sprint today. Everybody has a plan for the finale. People have been on Google Maps and having a look at the finish, as we heard from Bernie Eisel. With all the technology that's available now, Sean, it really is an interesting thing how teams plan the end of stage. We saw it with Lotto Soudal the other day, and the guys talked about having a meeting. The whole lead-out train sat down the night before the Castiglione della Pescaia stage that Andre Greipel won, had a meeting. They looked at it on Google Maps, and it's almost military precision with which these attacks on the finales are planned now.
Yes, well, the teams, they're so well organised now, and of course we know Ulrike Greenedge, we've seen in the past in the Tour of France where they send somebody out to do the final number of kilometres. They already have it back in the bus before they actually start their stage, and they can look at that final run in, and we've been hearing there from Google Maps. So they're all very much aware, and they have a good picture in their mind what the final 2-3 kilometres is like, and especially the two corners. We heard Lars back talking about the right-hander and the left-hander to the finish, but it's all about having enough of men in the front to be able to take control, and that's where the difficulty arrives.
The likes of Lars Jitting-Back and Adam Hansen are going to be vital for Andre Greipel today. Henderson, the man who is hoping to put those legal issues to the back of his head and try and lead out Andre Greipel. Greipel, if he wins today, will go back into the red points jersey. Elia Viviani, in the meantime, doing well to hold on. Showed the other day, though, that he's a sort of sprinter that may not need too much assistance in the finale. He got a bit of help with Puccio and Kirienka, but the rest of the team can look after Richie Porte, and Elia Viviani shows that he can fend for himself.
Yes, I think Viviani can manage himself in the final 2 kilometres, but before that is where you need the team to keep you up there in the top 15 riders, and of course Sky, they have got riders who can do that, but not everybody can keep their position and stay there in the top 4 or 5, and it's going to be of more importance into that final left hand of the day that you get a real good position. Viviani can do that. Greipel, I'm not sure, he needs a team, he needs 2 or 3 riders to take him at a real fast rate and lead him into the corners, and if his Lotto teammates can do that, well then Greipel is one who can take the victory today. But I feel at this moment it's more of the rider who is a bit more of a kamikaze. Modello, Viviani, those sort of riders can really do well.
Juan Antonio Fletcher took us inside for a tour of the Porter cabin the other day, Richie Porte's motorhome. What do you think of this new idea that's been put in by Dave Brailsford? He was making every single guy who went in there wash his hands yesterday with antibacterial lotion, and making sure that Richie didn't get ill, making sure he didn't get flu. A few of the Italian journalists poking fun at that fact, but just shows that every single bit of preparation is done meticulously by Sky.
Well, I think a lot of the race organisers are having nightmares at the moment, especially the Tour of France, because when you meet the guys from ASO at the Tour, they always talk about the problems with the teams, the big truck from the mechanics, the big bus. Some teams have 2 buses, then they have so many cars. Now, in the next number of years, are we going to see 198 camping cars at the finish?
If we see a fleet of motorhomes for every single rider and every single team, and Dave Brailsford already justified it, by the way, in an interview with the Italian press today, saying that, look, the other night, the riders got to a hotel, there was another group in there having a birthday party. They were singing, they were drinking, they were very loud after midnight, and a lot of riders actually had to change their hotel rooms to stay away from the noise after midnight. Richie wasn't bothered about that, and that's before you add up all the other ideas about waking up in the same bed, having a bit of space. It's an interesting thing to ponder. The flip side of it, I suppose, is does it destroy team spirit?
Well, that is a problem, and as we know, in the latter years, the team spirit, I think at the table, in that we see a lot, and a lot of the riders talk about that, and a lot of people talk about it as well. It's not the same in the past, but that is modern day sport, not only bike racing, but I think there's a lot for the motorhome, but there's no guarantee that the birthday party is not going to go into the car park.
And then how do you police it? How do you look after the security when you're at these races? Everybody sees it. It's been photographed and put on press to the world. We've had a little report. Everybody will be able to spot it and recognise it. It only takes 1 or 2 idiots to go and disturb him in the evening, and it's all changed. Lots to think about anyway. I'm sure we'll hear much more about the Porter cabin through the rest of this Giro d'Italia.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
65 kilometres remain, and we're looking at the Maglia Rosa, the pink jersey of Alberto Contador. 3 minutes and 25 of a gap, looking nice and comfortable. Hands even off the hoods today and back on the lower sections of the bars. He's got Emanuele Buono in front of him for Tinkoff Saxo. Tinkoff Saxo will be shutting their ears off to the world at the minute. Certainly off from their general manager, I should say. Oleg Tinkov threatening to reduce the salary of Tour of California winning Peter Sagan. Very, very strange.
I know, he can't do that.
You wouldn't think so legally, but he's looking for a way.
He's won California. That's enough.
You tell that to Oleg, Sean. You tell that to Oleg. 64.9 k's to go, 3:19. Welcome back to viewers on British Eurosport. We're just talking to our international friends about Oleg Tinkov and all these threats to try and reduce perhaps salary of Peter Sagan and other riders who aren't performing. Surely that's against contractual law, isn't it? He said he's looking for a legal way to do it. But Sean, do you think all these threats that he's making from the press are actually going to improve people's performance? Or is it just added baggage and unwanted media attention to the riders and the team?
Well, I think it's helped. We see Sagan, I think he had, a magnificent Tour of California to be able to hold in there on the difficult stage. There was always, there was always a doubt that he would be able to do that. He won California, so I think that pressure has been on there. I think Sagan was expected to do something in the classics. That's where he was taken on in Tinkoff Saxo, and of course, we'll have to think Mr. Tinkoff is not happy with his performance, but it's early days yet, and I think it's just putting the pressure on. And that's what you need for a lot of riders. I know from my own experience in the past, unless you're really pushed by the director of sportive, a lot of the time in the races, it's hard to get the 100% out of yourself all the time.
You weren't a slacker, were you?
Well, at times, there's races where you're feeling a little bit under your best, and you say to yourself, well, I'm not really good in this race. But if you're really pushed, it's amazing. Like if you're pushed by the director, that means motivate you all the time, keep on pushing you in the events, and you can get that extra 2 or 3%, and that means the difference between losing and finishing the top 2 or 3.
Misano motorcycle circuit, Misano Adriatico. Talking of circuits, we're going to finish in Imola tomorrow. Heading up for a circuit finish, something we've seen in the past as well. Paris-Nice most recently, World d'Espagne as well in the last couple of years. Very, very interesting circuit finish, and it's a circuit that takes us off the motor racing circuit and back up into town as well. At the minute, we're heading for a sprint. Sunshine very briefly just hiding itself behind a cloud. Had some fantastic weather so far this year on the Giro, and that's something that a lot of people talking about possibilities for the rest of this week and the rest of this race haven't really factored in. The fact that the weather could change, Sean, and we all know from the last few years and the history down the Giro d'Italia, when you get to the mountains back in the north, it can be so unpredictable, and if you have a bad day, catch a cold, it can end your race.
Well, it makes it so much more difficult, and makes it so much more dangerous, because the wet conditions in the mountain stages, when you have these long and dangerous descents, and also the conditions, it can get very, very cold. So hopefully that we do not get rain again in the mountain stages, because it would really upset the race, and it would make it difficult for a lot of riders. It makes it more dangerous. But it looks like in the next number of days, and that's also a factor, because when you get rain in this area tomorrow, of course, when we're going onto the circuit, if you get wet conditions there, it's not nice at all.
Well, all of your opinions are very, very much welcome here on the Home of Cycling, and we'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Home of Cycling if you'd like to put your questions to Sean Kelly next to me in the commentary box, or interact with us throughout this Giro d'Italia on Twitter. Bottle running being done by Igor Anton for Movistar. I've had a great few days with one of the British riders as well. The world record hour holder, Alex Dowsett, winning the time trial and then the overall general classification at the Tour of Bavaria in Germany, the Bayern Rundfahrt. And of course, they've had a fantastic week at the Giro d'Italia. They've had a stage, 2 in the top 10 in the general classification, here with Amador and Visconti, and all those results achieved without Nairo Quintana and without Alejandro Valverde racing. They're showing themselves to be one of the top teams yet again in 2015 after they were officially, by points, the top team in 2014, Sean.
Yes, well, they've had a real good season so far. Coming to this race without anybody for really general classification, they have already got a stage victory, and you know, in the general classification they still have some men up there, and in the rest of this, what's left of this race, you know, there are some riders here who could get some more stages for Movistar, so it's already a successful race for them, and that takes the pressure off, and that's when we see teams can really perform well and, you know, get extra results further in the race.
Definitely pressure off for Movistar. They were actually photographed stopping for a pint of beer and a lemonade by the beach yesterday on their rest day, out riding in the sunshine, and a few big pints followed up by a quick lemonade. No pints in there, I don't think. Vini Fantini, well, thought about it. They've been an interesting innovation, those drink spikes in the peloton. Heinrich Hausler, what do you make of his Giro d'Italia so far? Because he had a crash early on, he's not really threatened on the hilly stages where we'd expect him to be. I thought he might be challenging the likes of Michael Matthews for a couple of stages of Orica Green Edge, and he's a guy who eternally seems to have bad luck, the Australian champion.
Yes, well, I think he has had a lot of bad luck right through his career, and you know, it still seems to be following him about. I was expecting this year, you know, that he might, you know, perform that bit better than in the past 2 years, or a little bit more than that. Unfortunately, in this race, he's had his bad luck. But in the days to come, you know, you can look at the stages, that the undulating stages we've got. If he's getting into form, well, then we could see him doing something in those months.
60 k's to go. 2 minutes and 28. This gap has gone down to almost nothing already, and with teams still working at the front, a lot of teams contributing. It's almost an embarrassment of riches at the front. Far too many teams working hard at the front here, and it's going to be an interesting one to manage because they won't want to bring this back too early at all.
Well, that will not be the problem, because they can just, you know, knock it off a little bit on the front and then leave them hang out there for a minute and a half. But the surprise is that you know, it's coming down very quickly. I was expecting maybe to hold about 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, and the 5 out front, you know, they would say, well, just try and hold a nice advantage, get to maybe 30-35 kilometres, and you know, if they're all feeling quite good, well, then they could really, you know, up the pace and try and hold off. With this, you know, flat running, you can do that. We've seen it in the past where it looks like the breakaway was struggling, but suddenly with 25-30 kilometres, they all start working really well together. They turn up the pace and they hold the peloton up for a long time, but unfortunately it's coming down too quickly to be looking in that way at the moment.
Gatto, Malaguti, Marangoni, Bohem and Busato. An all-Italian 5-star break today for the Giro d'Italia inside the last 60 kilometres on stage 10.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
After a week of moving south to the west, it's time to move back north, this time to the east of Italy on the Giro d'Italia. Marco Bandiera towards the back, wearing number 13. He still leads the breakaway prize, the Fuga Pinarello. He's the man in the white and blue on the left-hand side. At the back in the red and white, you have Luca Paolini, always to the back of this peloton. Not the last rider on the road. That at the minute is Matteo Pellucchi, who's the maglia nera, the old black jersey. 57 kilometres still to go. 2 minutes and 50 for the breakaway today, which is Gatto, Malaguti, Marangoni, Bohem and Busato. All 5 riders all up there. 2 riders heading into their home region today. Marangoni from Emilia-Romagna, Malaguti actually from Forlì. Paolini and Bandiera in conversation towards the back of the peloton. Perhaps thinking about the local speciality of the region we're heading through today. Passatelli in brodo. It's a broth with a fantastic flavour, apparently. Not that much a fan of broths myself. Mentioned in a lot of Italian cookbooks around here. Passatelli made with breadcrumbs, parmesan cheese, eggs, pinch of nutmeg and lemon zest, apparently. You can have them dry as well, served with sauces of various kinds. Make you hungry, Sean?
Beginning.
Getting there.
Although I think I'll stay to the pasta again tonight.
Hard to resist, really, isn't it, Ronnie?
Certainly is. It's amazing as a bike rider you have a lot of pasta, but it's one of the dishes that I can still look forward to.
Peloton having a fairly relaxed day if you're in the bunch. There's the blue jersey of Simon Geschke, German leader of the mountains classification. And today we've been heading from Civitanovo Marche, where we had the rest day yesterday, to Forlì. It's almost 200 kilometers. Completely flat kilometers for the first 100 Ks today. Then we had that little climb. That's out of the way. Heading now to Cesena, Forlimpopoli, and the finish at Forlì, ever so slightly inland from the Adriatic coast, which the riders have been hugging for most of the day. Straight roads as well, just the odd roundabout, bits of road furnitures that you can see. It's inside the last 2 kilometers that things get interesting today. A very, very short pavé sector. And then inside the final 500 meters, you've got that bend, home straight on a 7-meter wide road. Chance to turn away from the coast and up to Forlì now for the peloton. 55 Ks to go. They have the gap to the breakaway very, very well managed. 250. Who we're going to see contesting the sprint? Cobbles around. Will Tom Bonham be there? Let's hear from him.
We are at the start here with Tom Bonham. Tom, it's a flat stage. Normally it's a stage that suits to you, but you have quite an advantage today, because at the end there's some cobbles.
Yeah. I studied the final very well, and I think today will be better for us, because it's just me and Sabatini if we want to do the sprints. It's narrow, cobblestones, a few tricky corners in the last kilometer. So it will be easier, I hope, to get into the good position. The last 2 sprints was very hectic with just the 2 of us, and so we'll try it again.
And after your sad spring with the injury, a win on quite cobblestones can be good.
Yeah, it will be very nice. I mean, 2 months ago I broke my elbow and my shoulder was completely destroyed, so I'm already very happy that I'm here. My condition is going very well, so it's been a very hard first 9 days of the Giro, and now maybe we'll see today is a good opportunity to get that first win out of the way.
Why not? Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks, man.
That's nice to hear for fans of Tom Bonham and Ethics Quickstep in general. They had a good week over in the Tour of California. Of course, Julien Alaphilippe didn't manage to sneak the overall in the end, but Mark Cavendish had 4 stage victories. He's going really, really well leading up the Tour de France this year, and out of the big sprinters, he's the guy with the best form, is Cav, at the moment. But Tom Bonham coming back is also good news for Belgium as a nation, because they'll be looking for him to try and do something in the World Championships later on. Cobblestones in Richmond in Virginia in the United States of America. Cobblestones today, but it's more the run-in, the turns, and the fact that he said with his experience he might find it a little easier to get the positioning today, and up against the likes of Lampre, Lotto Soudal. How do you rate Tom Bonham's chances?
Well, he's talking it well, but I don't think he will walk it that well. This run-in, I don't think it's for Tom. We've seen him in the past, and I've seen him in this Giro. You know, when you get into the really final 2-3 kilometers, when it really gets rough, and the fighting for positions, I don't think he's prepared, to get stuck in there anymore. And I doubt if today he'll be able to do it. And also, he's up against real good sprinters here. Bonin, of the past, he could do that plus 5 or 6 years ago, but at this moment I don't think he has got the to be able to do it.
See from that graphic, Forlì was the birthplace of Tullio Morgagni all the way back in 1881 when he was born. He was the editor of Gazzetta dello Sport, who organised this race right at the start. Still do through their parent company RCS Media. He launched also the Tour of Lombardy, Milan-San Remo and the Giro during his reign. So a big guy in the history of this race, who was born where we finish in Forlì. Talked about Rimini a little earlier on as well. There's the nicer part of it, away from all the bars and the tacky little touristy bits on the front where the beach is. Still a really big resort for a lot of Italians to head down and enjoy the summer. Lots of discos and nightlife about. Peloton staying well away from that tonight. Started life as a Roman colony, as you can see, and founded in 268 BC. Lots of Roman monuments there. I'm sure that's where the first tourism first arose from. But it's beach and beautiful weather today. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people, once the Giro's finished, of course, and once they've seen the television, out there to enjoy the late afternoon sunshine. Peloton skirt around Rimini today. They don't actually go into town. Heading up towards Forlì, as you can see with this dual carriageway, a few riders taking the wrong side of the roundabout and ended up on the left-hand side. Bit of extra energy, Sean, because there's a bit of wind as well around today. They don't want to be out there with their faces in the wind for too long.
No, and you can see that there's just a small number of riders, and of course, you know, the peloton being pulled along with a lot of teams represented up on the front. And if you find yourself, yes, at the wrong side, which is the left-hand side of the barrier, you're hoping that there will be an opening appear quickly. But we can see here, you know, it goes on, and it's dragging on, but they surely will. But it's not the first time we've seen where, you know, at the end the riders have to stop and actually climb off their bikes and climb over the barriers to get back on the right route.
A few of you tweeting in to say that you've noticed that on that graphic we had of Andre Greipel, the profile, it said his weight was 184 kilograms. Thankfully not the case. Somebody's made a mistake there. There's a Rogue One, I think. It's more like 84. And that's probably in the winter. He's looking lean, he's looking fit at the minute, but Andre Greipel's one of these guys who has to watch his weight a lot of the time. He says if he goes too light, he loses his power. And he's one of these guys who has tried not too much to sacrifice his power by losing weight and able to get over certain hills. He's a guy who knows what his stage finish is. He knows where he can try and win stage, and he's stuck to it. And so far, it's served him well in his career.
Yes, well, you know, the sprinters, there is the ones like Greipel, then there's other ones who, you know, are lighter, not as powerful, they can get over the hills a bit better. And Greipel know where he's real forte point is. That is in the big, you know, the flat sprints, the flat stages perfectly. He can get up the hills, you know, to a certain extent, but there's a number of sprinters who can do that better. And you can understand he doesn't want to lose, you know, too much weight, because that, you know, loses power also. And he is one of the, you know, the big power sprinters.
Inside 50 kilometres to go for the breakaway. Breakaway of 5 Italian riders today. Gatto is their second wheel in the bandaged up body. White jersey, blue with red little tinges on it as well. The man in the centre of the shot is Alessandro Malaguti for Nippo-Vini Fantini, racing into his hometown today at Forlì. On the right hand side, the man we were just talking about, the muscly figure of the gorilla from Rostock, former East Germany on the Baltic Sea. The gentleman sprinter, as they call him in these parts as well. Always has time for the press. Tends to say it how he sees it as well. He's honest when he's got his own shortcomings. Very, very popular figure in the peloton, Andre Greipel. And he was quick to thank his teammates the other day for that fantastic lead out they did as well. Quick time to radio in and just check on his progress. 50 kilometres per hour at the moment. 2 minutes and 54. Lotto Soudal have this gap nicely controlled. Not strung out quite as much as it was earlier on in the day. Not too much urgency from the group behind. Very much catchable, the break of 5 at the minute, with just less than 50 k's to go on stage 10.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
First day after the first rest day of the Giro d'Italia. 46.9 k's to go on stage 10. 5 riders still out there. We're heading to Forlì today. Ooh, news coming from Yam Cycling that Matteo Pelucchi has retired from the bunch. If that's the case, Sean, it's bad news for them, because they were riding for him today.
Yes, that's a surprise that they were riding, you know. If a rider's not feeling well for some reason, what is the reason he has retired? Because they were the ones who started to ride very early, and then they were joined by, you know, riders from different teams who have also sprint interest in the final of this stage.
So Matteo Pelucchi retired. More info on that if and when we get it. And for the benefit of our British viewers who are just rejoining us, Matteo Pellucci has just abandoned the Giro d'Italia. So Yam Cycling, who are doing all that riding very early on in the stage, now without their main sprinter. Sardinian fans already at the arrival, waiting for Fabio Aru. Aru in the white jersey. No chances really to gain anything back in terms of seconds today unless something bizarre happens on this stage. It's been quite a normal day so far today. None of the drama of the first week thus far. 45 kilometres remain, 2 minutes and 42 with a break of 5 up the road. Today we head to Forlì, and it's difficult to talk of Forlì without mentioning Ercole Baldini. Train of Forlì, our record holder back in the day, Olympic race winner, Giro winner as well, born in 1923 in a city that is very much linked to that big name. Two minutes and 38 for the 5 riders out there. What do you remember about watching Baldini, Sean?
Well, I don't remember watching him. I remember reading about him. Except in, in the later years we have some old footage. Yeah, when I came into cycling after a number of years, reading about the heroes of the past, he was the one who was mentioned quite a lot. And I was just reading some stuff there. I think was in last week where he went in a breakaway. One of his first Giros, I think. He went for a preem because he had no money after 7 kilometres, and he ended up doing 232 kilometres of a solo breakaway in a Giro. So that tells you about the guys back in those days. 237 kilometres, and the norm was 230, 250 kilometre stages. And often we talk about now, yes, we have a big stage, a long stage in the Giro where it's going to 230 kilometres. But in those times it was that distance every day.
Well, that's where the Grande Ciclismo and the old heroic cycling images come from, certainly when you relate it to Italian cycling, whether they still talk about those things. You've got journalists on Italian cycling programs straight after the stage is talking about that, trying to compare those exploits to those of modern cycling. It just doesn't quite fit, because these guys, they were different animals, they were different machines. They were riding 400 kilometers on stage. I think we heard last week, and we were talking last week about the longest ever break in the Giro d'Italia, which was something like 300 and odd kilometers. I've got it written down here. It was just crazy. The longest break out there for 300 odd kilometers, absolutely ridiculous. And you think about how these guys managed on bikes that have nothing to do with the modern machines. It's just fascinating thinking, and as you say, reading about all these exploits. 3Ks to go until the intermediate sprint. Good for the GC guys behind, Sean, that there are already 5 men out the front. Means that all the bonus seconds are going to be eaten up, and we may see a few of the sprinters thinking about the points jersey, trying to grab a few of the extra points that are on offer after these guys go through. But is it far enough for the finish to do that, to then relax and rest up for the finish, or do you think that the big sprinters will leave well alone?
Well, I think at the moment, or so, let's say some moments ago, the pace was down a little bit, because it was around the 2.5 minutes, and it's holding at that a bit. But when you look at the front of the bunch here, it's been pushed along. We did see some time ago it was still going at 50 kilometers per hour, and it's hard to imagine that when you look at the group here. They're very much grouped together, but up front they also have to be really pushing on here, the 5. But they're starting to hold on that 2.5 minutes in or around that. It was coming down very, very quickly. Now we get to this, coming up to the 40 kilometers to go. Will they be really, able to turn it up again, or keep this pace going, let's say, and make it difficult for the peloton to close down this final 2.5 minutes?
Oh, we're hearing a little more about Matteo Pellucci's decision to retire from the Giro d'Italia. Apparently still struggling from that crash last week in Genoa, where we had unfortunately the idiot on a fixie bike, on a Boris bike or a city bike, who tried to join the peloton, took half of the peloton with him down on the second stage. A lot of problems there, and despite the fact that he came into the Giro with some really, really good form, Matteo Pellucci, he's not been able to recover properly from those injuries, and that's a real shame.
Yes, it is a shame because for the team, he was, a really important cog in the wheel. To get a stage victory for I Am Cycling, it would be, a successful Giro for them. And when you're unlucky and you come down in a crash, and you try and continue on 2-3 days, you're hoping that it will get better. Fourth day, you say, well, it might start getting better here, but sometimes that doesn't happen. The after effects, continue to handicap you, and you can just only go on so far, and then when it continues on, then you start losing morale, and then it's difficult to continue for those guys. And you see the days slipping by for Pelucchi. These are the days where he will be making the hay. The sun is shining at the moment for those sprinter guys, but unfortunately with the injury he cannot do his best performance.
It's his ankle that's been giving him quite a bit of grief ever since then, unfortunately. Matteo Pelucchi out of the Giro d'Italia on stage 10, which should really have been a day where he could threaten and he could perform. Real shame for the Swiss team UCI Cycling as that Italian sprinter goes home. Again, for an Italian as well, to climb off in the Giro d'Italia, it's that little bit harder. Family and friends looking on, watching on. Here comes the intermediate sprint then. At the front you've got Oscar Gatto, who goes under it. He's going to take the points and the bonus seconds, but bonus seconds of no help to these guys. Just to illustrate what it's like, Oscar Gatto is 2 hours, 8 minutes and 47 seconds down on the race leader Alberto Contador. 3 seconds not really going to make too much of a difference from him. And as you can see, looks like a mummy on the left-hand side. He's all bandaged up, and those crashes from the first week making it really difficult for everybody involved. Sant'Arcangelo di Romagna is where we are. As you can see, an international festival dedicated to contemporary art. Every town has its little claim to fame on this eastern tourist belt. This is when they all start to arrive now, when the weather's coming good. Stage 10 takes it in. It's a very quick touch of the south. We're headed almost straight north after just 1 or 2 stages in the south of Italy the other day. I explained the first week, the infrastructure makes it very difficult for the Giro d'Italia to stay many more than a few days in the south of Italy. It's almost a political, in inverted commas, visit once every 4 or 5 years to do southern stages. Road service is not as good, not as many good hotels for the riders as well. Still Lotto Soudal working at the front. Inside 40 k's to go. 5 riders in the break: Marangoni, Malaguti, Gatto, Bohem and Bozzato. Break that went in the first 5 kilometers today. The last count, we had a gap of around 2.5 minutes. And we're waiting to see what happens out of this bunch as they approach the intermediate sprint. There are still points available for that red jersey, of course. Will riders risk going for it here, or will they be thinking of just setting up the grand finale? 50 points available on the line today for the stage winner. Makes it one of the big, important days in the whole Giro d'Italia for the red points jersey. And that red points jersey is currently on the back of Elia Viviani. Just at Sky at the minute, not close to the front. A couple of riders a bit further back. Elia Viviani's there in the red jersey. And here we go. Elia Viviani has just been brought onto the wheel of Giacomo Nizzolo. Threatening to challenge for it. In the end, both of them watching each other and staring each other out of the game. It was more or less half-hearted, Sean, that.
Yes, I think they're just watching each other, and they decided not to go for it, and thinking of the sprint, the finish, of course, the stage. If you can get the stage victory, is of such an importance, but also you get that bonus, of a big amount of points for the red jersey classification. So both of them just playing the game, watching each other, but none of them really contesting.
It's funny that Nizzolo went first. There was a lot of looking around. Bernie Eisel, who was in front and in charge of managing the position of Elia Viviani, the rider from Sky, who has the red points jersey on his shoulders at the minute, just went after Nizzolo and stopped. Bit of cat and mouse, but in the end all the points mopped up by these guys chasing down the breakaway at 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Approaching 36 k's to go for the 5-man breakaway. Gatto, Bohem, Marangoni, Bozzato, Malaguti all racing towards Forlì today. And all being chased down by a peloton that is led by Lotto Soudal at the moment. And in the green there is Nicola Bohem. Not the first time he's been out in the break already. He's looking to mount up those kilometres for the Fuga Pinarello prize, that prize for the most kilometres spent out in the breakaway. Further behind, second wheel. Now just taking up the front, the man from southeast, Bozzato. An hour and 36 minutes behind. He's the best place of the 5 riders today, so there was no danger about letting them go up the road. Luca Paolini, in the meantime, in conversation with Katusha. Katusha, who are looking to try and sprint for Alexander Porsev today. Third Giro d'Italia for Luca Paolini. Winner of a stage and aware of a pink jersey as well on his first ever Giro a few years ago. Had to wait till the end of his career to get his debut, really. Bernie Eisel in conversation with Andre Greipel. It's that sort of day at the minute. A nice chat there, the two German speakers. Former 2 teammates as well when they're at High Road together. In the meantime, Track Factory Racing looking for their something out of this Giro d'Italia. Got a team that is somewhat weaker than the one we saw last year racing here, with Juliana Redondo going for the King of the Mountains jersey and getting that in the end. Here it's all about the sprint for Giacomo Nizzolo. Breakaway goes under the 35-kilometre to go barrier. Just in Bernie Eisel having a chat with Andre Greipel behind. There's really no pressure on the guys chasing on at the minute. It's nicely managed, this gap. Eisel and Greipel, of 2 German speakers, one Austrian, one German, and of course former teammates at Team High Road back in the day. Greipel, the German champion, easily identifiable there. No longer wearing the red jersey as he briefly had on his back. That's back now on the hands Bernie Eisel's Sky teammate, Elia Viviani. Confirmation of intermediate sprint points, Gatto, Bohem and Bozzato taking them. Red jersey points all on offer as well, and they were taken down to a few more places. Lotto Soudal still controlling things here. Interesting, Sean, the couple of sprint days we've had so far, we've seen the GC teams doing a lot of work at the front, both days with crashes involved. Do you think there'll be the same amount of nervousness today, given the fact that it's a complicated finish inside the last couple of kilometres? Of course, if they do crash in the last couple of Ks, they're already inside that 3K to go banner, so they will get the best time. But as we've seen, it's not just about avoiding losing seconds, it's about avoiding the crashes as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how fast and how furious it gets towards the end if the likes of Tinkoff, Saxo, Sky and Astana start joining in and mixing it up with the sprint teams in the last few Ks again today.
Well, they will be very nervous in the final, the general classification riders, because to get into the final 3 kilometres, there's always a big fight to do that, to get to there, and because you're always majorly concerned there's a crash outside the 3 kilometres, and then there's splits in the group and you lose that 20, 30, 40 seconds so quickly, and nobody wants to do that, and they want to avoid that at all costs. So they will be the teams coming to the front. At the moment we're in we're on a very straight road, good roads to sit in there. We can see Saxo Tinkoff or Tinkoff Saxo, they're sitting in there just further back in it, and they're going to allow this chase to go on. And it's interesting, 2:34 at the moment. The breakaway, we can see there's a lot more urgency in the 5-man breakaway. They really have upped their game a bit, and that's what they've been doing. They've been working it out and saying, well, if we can get to a certain point with a nice advantage, then really turn it on, give it our all, everybody contribute of the 5 up front, and see can they hold off. And it's going to be interesting now to see will this gap start to come down in the next number of kilometres, because when we get to 20 kilometres to go, if they can have 2 minutes, well then depending on what sort of force and how many teams they have on the front of the peloton, will all the sprinters teams continue on to keep on working, because sometimes they say, oh, now it's going to be difficult. If we keep on working here, we're going to really pay in the end to prepare our sprint for our sprinters. So it's looking a bit more interesting, a lot more interesting than it was 20, 30 kilometres ago.
Yeah, we've just sort of been watching it rumble along in front of us. It's like the fireworks of the opening week, but as Juan Antonio Fletcher said right at the top of the broadcast, if you want days like we had in the first week, you sort of need these calmer days as well, don't you?
Well, you're always going to get these calmer days, you know, where you have a flat stage after a very difficult first week. There's going to be, you know, a time where you get a breakaway, as we have today. Riders in the general classification a long ways down, so you know the general classification teams have no reason to chase, so they're just going to roll along and allow the breakaway to take 10 or 15 minutes. But unfortunately for the 5 breakaway, the sprinters teams, you know, they weren't allowing that today, and they started, you know, control things a long ways out, and for that reason we have a situation at the moment with, you know, just under 2.5 minutes. But it's turning out that we can see here the 5 are really starting to up their game, and now it depends how much they have. You know, if all 5 are really still good and they can continue on working as they have been in the last 10-15 kilometres, you know, they will go a long ways towards the end of this stage.
You can see that graphic there talking about Ercole Baldini, pardon me, who we were talking about, Giro and world champion in 1958. Buzzato just trying to keep this going for as long as they can. As Sean was saying, maybe just save that little bit of energy to give it a real go at the end. We mentioned that Matteo Palucchi is off the bike. And there is the tweet that we've had to confirm that from the team itself, just saying they're really sorry to confirm the news that YAM Cycling's Matteo Palucchi has abandoned the race. Ankle problems from that crash we saw in Genoa right at the start of the Giro. This is the front of the race. We mentioned very early on that there are 2 riders from the region, 1 rider from the town that we're heading to, and that is Alessandro Malaguti, the man on your screen in the orange and navy blue, riding in the Forlì and riding to try and honour himself right in front of his friends and family. Bit of extra motivation just in case you needed it. Alan Marangoni at the front as well, from the Emilia-Romagna region. Oh, finally we can see that tweet. So sorry to confirm that at Pelucchi_Matteo had to abandon on the Giro d'Italia. More info tonight. Still a lot to do though for YAM Cycling. He's the first rider from YAM Cycling to abandon, actually. They came into today with a full team of 9. A couple of teams already down to 7 riders. Ethics Quick-Step and Nippo Vini Fantini, alongside Team Lotto NL Jumbo, have all lost 2 riders late. That means 11 riders now since the start of the Giro have climbed off. Not as bad as last year. We had that horrible crash in the first week in Monte Cassino. We had illnesses, we had bad weather at the start in Northern Ireland, and then once we get to Italy it was actually worse. Lots of riders' casualties last year. We've lost 11 so far. We're inside the last 30k. Should be a big sprint today, and all the action is coming up soon.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
You're watching stage 10 of the 2015 Giro d'Italia, the 98th edition of the great pink race around Italy. Gatto, Malaguti, Marangoni, Bohem and Buzzato all out there in the break today. 27.3 kilometres to go. Big speed difference between the breakaway and those behind at the minute. 55 k's an hour for those chasing them down. 50 k's an hour for these guys out in front. Their current advantage is 2 minutes and 32 seconds. What have they kept in reserve for the dart to the line? That's the question. These are the guys who are chasing them. Lotto Soudal trying to do a sprint with Andre Greipel. Giant Alpecin as well for Luca Mezgec. Trek Factory Racing contributing for Giacomo Nizzolo's chances. Headed to Forlì today, where we've had finishes in the past dating back all the way to 1925, when Constante Girardengo was the first winner. Alfredo Binda also won back in 1928, Guerra in 30, Bini in 37, Servadei just before the war in 39. Rick van Looy was the first winner in Forlì post-war in 1960, Freddy Mertens in 1977, and the latest and last finish that we had here in Forlì was 9 years ago in 2006. Robbie McEwen, the winner, the Australia in 2006. We had a stage start here as well just a few years ago in 2009. That was the first Giro that I was at in a professional capacity, and I remember it was Serge Pauwels who won on the day. Talked about the food and the food capital, the cuisine capital of Italy being Emilia-Romagna. Graphic just illustrating that, and the piadina, little flatbread that's rolled over. Marco Pantani's mum used to make them down in Cesenatico. Family still does, in fact. Stage finished down in Cesenatico a few years ago, and one man who'll be hoping to win today was the winner on that day, and he made his name that day. Manuel Belletti riding for Southeast. Belletti and Petacchi riding together. They've both been able to work off each other and sprint for their own chances off the wheels. Belletti there, he was a promising youngster, of course he's in the prime of his career now, has failed to really add too much to his wins, but always there or thereabouts. He had a couple of good placings last week. And what about Alessandro Petacchi, Sean? 41 years of age, do you think he has another Giro stage win in him?
Well, difficult to see. Looking on his form in the past week, it doesn't look like he is in that shape. But again, you know, there is the experience. You just, you know, keep on working in the race, and you go to a point, and then you say, well, now I'm feeling a bit better. So certainly he's got the experience, but I don't know will he be able to, you know, to get to the level. It is possible after a week of racing, you know, that a guy in the end of his career, when you're older, it takes, you know, quite a number of days to really get close or get to your top shape. So maybe Petacchi is trying to work at that. Will it happen? We'll have to wait and see. But I think in the big run sprints, he also is going to have a problem here. You know, not prepared to take the risk, and if you back off a fraction in those sprints, well, then you lose, you know, a number of places. There's so much fighting for positions here. If you're not prepared, you know, to really fight for your corner, well, then it's very difficult to stay in that top 20 riders, unless you have a real big team around you, can, you know, just ride you out of that fighting zone where they can keep you right to the front. But this running again today, as I mentioned, for a Greipel, is not the ones that will suit Greipel or Petacchi. They would prefer a big long straight of 1 kilometre where they can, you know, get the real big gear rolling and come at a really fast rate into the final 250-300 metres.
Cesena and another intermediate sprint towards the end here to make it very, very interesting. Will those teams be interested again, or will we see something like we saw not too long ago with the big guys just looking at each other, and unless somebody made the move, they weren't going to follow? If that happens again, they could cancel each other out. Breakaway once again will take those bonus seconds. So that's no worry for the general classification guys. And we've just seen another 15 seconds or so chopped off the advantage, but it's getting towards that 20 kilometre to go mark that you were talking about, Sean. You talked about 2 minutes, and this could be interesting in that if the teams behind start thinking about their trains and looking at each other, it all depends what these 5 guys have in the front just to make it extra nervy and said the few last kilometres.
Yes, it all depends how much they have left, how much energy they have, and they have been really riding good, because we can see back in the peloton, we did see at a moment they were comparing 50 kilometres per hour for the breakaway of 5 riders, and the bunch was going at 55, but different section of the road, of course, so that, you know, could change a lot. But that advantage there, 230 was holding up for a long time. Now we can see 217, 216 at the moment. It is coming down, but again, you know, there's a few more coming to the front. We did see Giant coming to the front of a number of riders, but they've disappeared very quickly, and it's only the Lotto team of Andre Greipel who are contributing with a lot of riders, and they're going to start saying, well, where's the other teams here? Why are they not contributing? And if that happens, well, that will, you know, advantage to the 5 breakaway.
4 hours of racing on stage 10 of this 2015 Giro d'Italia, the 98th edition of the big loop around the big boot of Italy. As always, plenty of wonderful sights to see. We're into Emilia-Romagna now. It's a region where we'll stay for a couple of days. That's before we head up into the Veneto region. We know that in particular we're thinking, as the average race speed goes up to 45 kilometers per hour. In terms of Elia Viviani, he wants to win the stage to Jesolo. I don't think he's going to turn his nose up at this should he get the opportunity, because he wants to keep that red jersey. Today, as we said, 50 points available for the red jersey, the points jersey, the sprinter's jersey in effect at this Giro d'Italia, with the way the points are advantageous to winning on the flat. He will want to stay in that jersey. Intermediate sprint at Cesena coming up, and look at all the people. It's a beautiful, beautiful day again on the east coast of Italy, and just showing once again that they really do love their home race. The break working as hard as it can. Notably, the seconds are starting to tick down a little more. 2 minutes and 10. but they're still all working together, not too much thinking about their own opportunities just yet, and they can't really afford to do that at all today, given the nature of the course. Nicola Bohem is the man at the front on the left-hand side, 25 years of age now. Developed through the Bardiani team in the last few years, and he's another man who's heading up to his home region in just a couple of days when we get to the Veneto. Oscar Gatto hits the front. Had a couple of results in the classics, nothing big, it was only placings early on. He's going to go and take the points again. There is that intermediate sprint. Not really contested. What will happen behind in 2 minutes' time? That's the question. And again, we are getting towards that stage now, Sean, where 20 kilometres to go is a bit taxing on the legs to have a sprint for points here. Surely the big guys aren't going to bother with this one.
Well, it's difficult for Viviani to go for the sprint because it's Lotto of Andy Greiper who's been riding. If Viviani comes up here and just takes what's left on the line for the red jersey classification, well then Lotto and Andy Greiper more so is not going to be happy at all, and for that reason we could see him. He was just in the previous one, ๊dʒiːro, he was just watching him, and if he did go, well then you have the excuse, well ๊dʒiːro went for it, I have the right to go for it as well. But it will be an interesting one if some of those guys do go for it. Well then we might see them having a go at it, but I doubt. I think they will just continue sitting here and allowing the front of the peloton, whoever's on the front, just to take the points that are available on the line.
That's unless they get distracted by Pink Batman there on the line as well. 20 k's to go for the breakaway. Last intermediate sprint done and dusted. They have an advantage of just over 2 minutes over the peloton at the minute. Clock is ticking. They're being chased down. Lotto keeping the pace nice and high. Not too much of a sign of Elia Viviani at the moment. No sign of ๊dʒiːro either. Andre Greipel, by the way, has already said that he's not thinking about the red jersey at this Giro d'Italia, which suggests that he's not going to stay for week 3. Said it was nice to wear it the other day, but he wouldn't be going for points in the middle of stages. Interesting to see whether he keeps to that, keeps his word or not. Nobody having a go. Points not an issue. 2 minutes. 2 minutes is the advantage. 19.3 k's to go. How's it looking, Sean?
Well, it's looking interesting. We see at the moment it's Andy Greiper's team who is doing the big share of the work on the front, and our 5 men out front are working well together. 2 minutes, a very nice advantage, and they are going to go a long way. Will they have enough to hold off?
We haven't had a day without excitement so far. It's been a slow burner on stage 10, but we're just about getting there. 18.8 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 1 second of an advantage over the Maglia Rosa group. Now, if they work hard together, this can go and tumble in no time, but with Lotto Soudal doing most of the work, wanting to save something for a lead out, if a couple of teams just take their foot off the gas, it could be very, very interesting to see how much the 5 riders on the left-hand side, Gatto, Bohem, Marangoni, Busato and Malaguti, are all Italian break today, have left in the tank. Now, BMC want to make this interesting. They want to try and bridge the gap, just make it hard. They haven't come here with a big sprinter. The fastest man they've got is Rig Zabel, and what they've tried to do every single day during this Giro d'Italia is just animate the race, light it up a little. That's not good news for the breaker out in front, the fact that BMC have sent a man out there. No,
it's not good, and not good for the riders from the Lotto team who are, been riding on the front and giving close to the 100%, I reckon, and your guy just rides off the front and is just hanging out there at 25-30 metres ahead. Not good for morale at all if you're starting to suffer, and that's where it's going to be difficult for the team who are just pulling this peloton along at the moment.
Everybody's going to have to contribute. They're going to have to share out the work. BMC rider has to be chased down. Could become a danger otherwise. We're looking, of course, we've seen Stefan Kung riding fantastically well in the Tour de Romandie. Rik Zabel out there as well. Amel Moinard, who's been on the attack several times. Darwin Atapumu had a nightmare start. And here, BMC riding, having a go. And Walter, who's such a strong time trialist. Trek Factory Racing still contributing, just the one man. And it's Stefan Kung, who we mentioned, who's gone out. Such a dangerous rider. We saw him ride away from people in a breakaway. He is already a world champion on the track at just 21 years of age. He's been caught, as you'd expect, but again, it's just made sure that those behind have to do that bit more work. And it's not good for the break because it means that they're chased down that little bit more as well. Confirmation of the intermediate sprint points given out at that Cesena checkpoint. Lotto Soudal working hard here, bits of road furniture. 16.7 Ks to go, and we're going to see the GC team just wake up, I think, Sean, very soon as well, just to keep their men safe.
Yes, we can see it already. We can see Tinkoff Saxo appearing there. Also Astana starting to appear, and that's also a difficult one for the riders who have been securing the pace, setting on the front of the bunch for quite a long time. If you see those teams rolling up beside you, well then you start to lose heart a bit, and we can see 159 all the time. The riders out front, the 5 are really putting up big fight here, and it looks like, you know, they are going to, if not go all the way, they're going to go very close to the finish. And, you know, the breakaway 5 Italian riders, they're really, you know, working well together. You know, the ones who know the road very well, a little advantage as well, because if there's a point where there's a little bit of, you know, a pinch point, you can make the calculation, you can go, you know, at full gas right through. All of that will be very important, and, you know, 156 getting more and more interesting for the 5 breakaway.
We've had so many surprises on this Giro d'Italia. Look at the profile here. This would have been the most surprising one of the lot if the break could stay away. This is going to be a huge, huge error by the sprint teams if they can't catch these guys. They have a little bit of a wind in their favour as well, which is helping the 5 riders out in front. Gatto, Bohem and Malaguti alongside Busato and Marangoni. And remember, Busato racing for Southeast, first Giro d'Italia. Marangoni from the region, Malaguti from the city where we head. Cobbles don't look that bad, says Juan Antonio Fletcher. No danger despite the last tight left-hander. We'll see how it plays out on the road. 15 kilometres remain, 1 minute and 52. And this gap holding wonderfully, wonderfully well for the breakaway here. Straight roads all day. Sean, if they don't pull these guys back, the big sprinters will be kicking themselves, won't they? There are hardly any sprint opportunities that Giro as it is. And if they give one away like this, it would be an absolute nightmare for the sprint teams.
Well, I think the ones who will be kicking themselves is the ones who have, you know, really put the domestiques on the front, and that is Andre Greipel's team. We see Giant Albacin, they have been there. Trek Factory Racing also, but you know, there's Team Lotto Jumbo who hasn't put anybody in. No, Moreno Hofland is there, Lampre hasn't done anything. So you know, those teams and the riders, they cannot, you know, really say anything because they did not, you know, get into the chase on the front of the peloton. And it's looking, you know, more and more like, as we go now to close to 14 kilometres, still 151 an advantage.
Well, there's still a few teams who are going to be thinking we've got to save something for the final few kilometres. And again, if they start looking at each other and stop the work that they're doing, the likes of Lotto, Giant and Trek Factory Racing, then they really do have a problem. At the minute, as long as the work carries on, something can change. It's going down. Is it going down enough? I'm not so sure. Trek Factory Racing, again, just perhaps bringing a few more riders to the front now. Giant Alpecin as well, but these guys still working together. And one thing to note as well, Sean, that they have to continue to work together.
Yes, well, they will have to continue and just, you know, work together until the final 2 kilometres, 3 kilometres, depending on what the advantage will be at that point. But, you know, 147 at the moment, and when you come to 10 kilometres, 140 in advantage, the chasers on the front of the peloton are going to say that this is not going to, you know, be possible, we're not going to be able to do it, and then they start to, you know, drop morale.
On the verge of potentially another huge story at the Giro d'Italia. Should have been a nailed-on sprint day today. Course as flat as a pancake. 13.4 Ks to go though, and 5 Italian riders riding for their life with a little bit of assistance with the wind. 1 minute and 44 ahead of a chasing peloton. Problems in the meantime for one of the Androni riders. Oh, and it's a rider in the breakaway. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Not good for Oscar Gatto, who is a fast man to the line, and he would have been in within a shout, a real shout of taking a win. Sean Kelly a nightmare for Gianni Savio's team here.
Yes, a nightmare for Oscar Gatto, but also a nightmare for the breakaway, because they were really working the 5, all contributing equally. Now one man down, and they cannot afford to knock it off out front. So the 4 up front all the time, they are going to have to continue on working, and unfortunately for the Androni team and for Oscar Gatto, a disaster to get a puncture at this moment.
They've been in every break bar one, and the chance that they really have of doing something with Gatto, probably the fastest finisher out of the 5, punctures and gets left behind. Deary me. A look behind, tries to get going again, but that is heartbreaking for Oscar Gatto, former winner of the stage on the Giro d'Italia so far. Last time that Alberto Contador was here on the road in 2011, he won a stage as well. 12Ks to go for the breakaway on the left-hand side, which is now 4 riders. Nicola Bohem is left, Alan Marangoni is with him, as is Alessandro Malaguti and Matteo Busato, the man we were just seeing in the white and grey on your screen. Bohem is the man in green. This is Malaguti in the orange and dark blue, and well, for Gatto, game over.
Yes, well, of course, behind the breakaway, no cavalcade of cars of anything major, so to get back in, impossible really. And the way they're riding, the 5 out front, they were just going out close to 50 kilometers per hour, and if you puncture at that point after being out there all day, for Oscar Gatto to close down the gap, it was never going to happen. And we could see he did not even make the effort, because he knew it was just the moment he got the puncture, it was day over.
11.2 Ks to go. Gianni Savio and Androni Giocattoli in conversation with Gatto. They'll move up. Gatto, in the meantime, is going to wait for his mates in the peloton. And in fact, the car as well, I think, instructed to pull over into that lay-by and wait their turn in the procession of cars behind. In the meantime, the break is down to 4 then. 1 minute and 30, 10.8 Ks to go. Sean, if you're riding in this Lotto Soudal train behind, what are you thinking now with the current situation?
Well, it depends on how your riders are feeling. We can see on the front there's a few of the Lotto riders, pulling a face, so they are starting to suffer, and they have been for quite a number of kilometres now. So it's not looking good for the sprinters and for the main peloton to be able to close this one down. 1:30 at the moment as we go close to 10 kilometres, and we can see here, I think, Lotto have disappeared off the front. And there's still some of them there, but they have not as many riders represented here. And we can see now general classification teams starting to crowd out in the front, and that's going to be also difficult for the team who have been chasing for a long time. So it looks like these 4 can go all the way.
Alberto Contador, the pink jersey, as well as Astana, the white jersey, with Fabio Aru coming to the front. Lampre Merida committing 1 man, but no more than that at the minute. They've got a fast team as well. They've got sprint options. They're going for Sacha Modolo today. They've said that, but they've got Ferrari as well. We've seen Ulisi doing well in the uphill sprint too, but Ikeze is a fast man as well. 1 minute and 32 with 10 kilometers to go for 4 breakaway riders. Alessandro Malaguti at the front for Nippo Vini Fantini. Racing the Ford Liam, what a dream day it would be for him to win in his hometown. Lotto Soudal back on the front, Lars Yitting back, and Adam Hansen ready. Greg Henderson is the man who protects Andre Greipel. Waits and waits. The back in the meantime, Androni riders who will be cursing their luck. The gap was at 1 minute and 30 seconds. Peloton fast, Peloton very, very strong out now, and it's all that competing for places at the front. Really interested to see what the exact time gap is now when they come through this 10 kilometers to go barrier a little further behind. Of course, the GPS not always as reliable. Once you get the stopwatch on them, it's going to be really, really interesting. It's still more than a minute, Sean, as well. Lotto Soudal there. Mack is going to lead them through this gate now. It's not changing that much. 1 minute and 19 with 8.7 k's to go. They can do this in the break.
Yes, I think it's looking real good for the breakaway, and we can see a lot of riders. They also have put Maxime Monfort up there, and he's up in the general classification because he's in 17th position at 4 minutes. He hasn't been riding all along, so they're using all their manpower from Lotto Soudal, but the surprising one is that there's other teams that hasn't contributed at all, and they haven't put a number of men on the front, and I think it's looking more and more possible for the 4 breakaway to hold out there.
Why would that be? Is that because it was a rest day yesterday and it was such a hard first week, or that it was just a little blasé and everybody's saying, well, it's going to be a sprint anyway, we know it's going to be a sprint, it's so flat, somebody's going to do the work, we'll let the other teams do it?
I think, yes, exactly, that's what a lot of the teams and a lot of the sprinters were thinking, that we'll just sit on here, get an easy ride, allow Lotto Soudal to do the chasing, and they will be able to close it down. A 5-man breakaway normally, when you have other teams also, and they were track factor race and got involved with 1 or 2. We also had Giant Albacin, who had a man or 2 in there, so it looked like that they were going to be able to close the breakaway down without any difficulty, and I was pretty sure that we would see a big bunch sprint here, but our 5 men up front have been surprised, and they have really put up a performance. I think they have surprised a lot of riders and a lot of directors sportifs.
What have they got left in the tank? The man at the front here, Matteo Bussato, has never won a race as a professional. The man behind him, Nicolas Bohen, 1 win as a pro. He won a stage last year of the Tour of Denmark. Alan Marangoni behind, no professional wins. A life as a 30-year-old working for his teammates, the likes of Basso and Nibali in the past. The only other man in the breakaway, Alessandro Malaguti, 1 win 2 years ago in France. Second category race, really, the Route ๊dʒiːro de Vitré. This would be the biggest day of any of these guys' career, without a doubt. And a heroic one as well, if it were to be for Marangoni, who's from the region, or in the case of course, the man who is from Forlì, Alessandro Malaguti. 1 minute and 14, it's coming down, but not at the rate of knots that the peloton require it to do so at the minute. 6.6 k's to go, and we've seen the urgency on the front now from Lotto Soudal. They are really, really riding.
Yes, well, they are giving it everything now, and really pushing on to their maximum. But we can see, there's a looking around here. We can see a Lotto man just peeling off the front, looking about here, and I think he's done so. We're down to 2 Lotto riders at the moment, and unless there's other teams who push riders in there, this advantage just coming to the 6 kilometres, 1:15 at the moment. It's hard to see that those 4 riders will be caught in the end, unless there's a big change on the front of the peloton.
Well, they could start playing cat and mouse. They could start to think that it is possible ever so often and ever so sudden, pardon me. They could start to think of their own chances. Look at this behind. It is frenetic pace. A couple of Sky riders towards the back as well. There's Koenig alongside Salvatore Puccio. Look around for them. 5.6 k's to go. The nerves for the GC guys are still there as well. They don't want to have any problems here inside the last 5.5 kilometres.
Yes, and they have to be a problem here for Sky, because we see, I think it was Bernie Eisel who just went out of our screen there on the right hand side. So it looks like there is a Sky man further back here. There, a lot of looking about from Sky.